I think that based on his own scientific evidence, he has some issues with the lockdown. Of course, I'm talking about USC professor Joel Hay. We saw him go viral with this statement on the news in San Diego this week.
So there are two, I would say, on the extreme ends, school of thoughts when it comes to getting back to work. You sort of represent the let's open up, let's get back to work.
You don't shut down the globe for something that's normal flu or even 2 to 3 times normal flu. This is destroying millions of lives and killing about 100 people for everyone it ostensibly saves.
Joel joins me now. Joel, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Del. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So,
Excellent.
Department, tell me why what is it you know about when you look at the modeling and the math and the medical decisions? What is your area of expertise to begin with? How is it, where are you coming from as you are looking at these lockdown measures and COVID-19, this disease?
Okay, well, first, Del, thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. I need to get my message out there because I think I've got the right message, as do many of your heroic guests, such as the previous nurse, who is one of the healthcare workers that is courageous on the front lines, and there are a lot of others who are not as courageous.
Yeah.
But I guess what I would say is several things. First of all, none of these lockdowns make any sense because the evidence is now overwhelming that C-19 was around the globe, transmitted around the globe, all the way back to now August of 2019. They now can show that the virus was in Wuhan, and this thing travels, every day there are jet planes from Wuhan to LA, and every day there are jet planes from LA to New York, and every day there are jet planes from New York to everywhere in Europe, and every day there are jet planes from Wuhan to Italy. And so, anybody who thinks that a lockdown in March, 6, 8 months after we know this virus was going over the globe on a daily basis, is just utter nonsense. And if you go to my website, joelhay.com, what you will see is we could end this lockdown in 72 hours if officials ordered testing of stored blood samples in hospitals, blood donor centers, clinics, and labs. And let me explain what I mean by that.
Please.
What I mean by that is, wherever you live in the United States or in the world, and by the way, you asked me what my expertise is. This is my expertise, tracking the economic, social burden of C-19 and tracking what is true about it and what's not true about it. This is what I do as a scientist for 40 years. And look, I've got, a 200 plus scientific peer-reviewed citations. I've got a, really high impact factor. My citations have been cited over 10,000 times by other scientists. So, I can play the science legitimacy game with the best of them. Despite the fact that all those citations are slanted in a direction that may not be, absolutely truthful. And we could go on about that topic on another show because I think there are a lot of questions about what is true and what isn't in the scientific literature. And certainly after C-19 is over, if we ever can get over it, because the burden, I'm seriously worried as an expert in economics, PhD in economics from Yale, trained under the best, James Tobin, Nobel Prize winner, Jolene Koopmans, Nobel Prize winner. We're going to have to get out of this recession, depression, which is going to crater the economy. We've already lost 50 million unemployed receiving compensation checks. Where are we going to get the money to print for all those unemployment checks and welfare checks? I mean, who's going to pay those taxes?
It's
But
incredible.
anyway,
But take me back, Joel. Take me back to testing blood banks. I'm curious about this because I want solutions, right? We can all bitch and moan about, oh, we don't like what's going on, but you have a solution here. How is it in 72 hours we can be out of this? Take me through that.
Okay, so here's how we do it. Go to any town or city in the United States with a hospital that has stored blood going back to, any time in 2019. My USC colleagues tell me that they can test that blood and they can be confident that with an 80% chance, they will find C19 antibodies in stored blood in any town that has it going back to September, maybe even August of 2019. Now, think about that. If we can prove that it was in your town, in your hospital, in September of 2019, why are they locking us down in March?
Right.
The horse left the barn 6 months before that, right? And so if we say that, if we say, hey, the horse has left the barn, guys, why are you keeping us locked out? Why do we have any of this? Why are schools closed? That's my greatest concern. Why can't my grandchildren learn in a real school? What, a 5-year-old has to do Zoom to interact with other kids and
especially
teachers?
The one thing we do know is that the odds of a child dying from COVID-19 are so far below zero, it's staggering. I mean, it's nowhere, you compare it to the flu, but for children, it's nowhere near as dangerous as the flu. It's not even
like
on the chart.
by lightning twice.
Right.
For a kid, it's like getting struck by lightning twice in a row. I mean, it's not going to happen. And by the way, every child that I know of that has a, quote, C19 death report has some other very, very serious problem. And usually it's like immunosuppression because they're cancer patients. These are very seriously sick kids. Or here's the big one, and this is not just kids, it's all the way up to age 55 and older. If you are morbidly obese, so almost every person under the age of 55 that doesn't have some obvious condition like immunosuppression due to cancer therapy or due to organ transplant, if you have morbid obesity, that will also trigger a immunospiking cytokine storm that can kill you. So, C19 is a virus that attacks those people that, have something they really have to worry about to begin with. And if we're going to protect anybody, we got to protect them, not the school kids. The school kids are being destroyed by this lockdown.
Let me ask you this, because here on the High Wire, we've been reporting really going back more than 3 months now. I have been reporting on scientists like yourself, and world-renowned scientists, whether it's from Oxford or John Ioannidis or you name it, that have been speaking out from the beginning or near the beginning against these draconian measures. Peter Gutcha, who is one of the founders of the Cochrane collaboration, saying not only are these not necessary, but they are going to cause more death and destruction than this virus could have ever dreamed. When for you, as a scientist, because I'm sure you see the world differently than most of us that are just running around with their hair on fire trying to get our, the next bills paid and get to our kids' baseball game. At what point in this COVID-19 pandemic did you finally just say, that's it, this is absolutely absurd, which is where you seem to be at now? What set you off?
Well, this is my business. I'm an expert in analyzing epidemics and outcomes of epidemics and the social and economic burden of epidemics. And that's why, please, everyone, tell your friends, neighbors, family members, go to joelhay.com and fill out our survey, because we want to track the burden of this false epidemic pandemic on society. And what we will find is that the C19 virus itself isn't much worse than a normal flu. It clearly isn't any worse than the Hong Kong flu of '68, which not only did we not shut anything down, and by the way, I was there, I'm old enough to have been there. That was a momentous year, 1968, and a lot of things were in the news. I'll tell you what wasn't in the news was the Hong Kong flu, which killed 3 times as many people as C19, even if you believe the data.
Right.
So, you know, here we have a situation where we could be doing a much better job, and we don't need the lockdowns. The people that need to be protected are the vulnerable. And we know that nursing homes are the biggest place where that happens. And we know how some of those nursing home residents are actually getting killed, from the courageous previous guest you had on this show. You know, it's a horrible situation in many cases of what's actually happening to these C19 patients at the end of their lives, and how it's all being manipulated for profit by you know, the various industries. You know, and meanwhile, our kids are suffering. You know, even before this, 5 to 7 children were dying each day in this country from sexual and family violence. And now we're cooping everyone up with those family members or those relatives or those guardians or those foster families. And they're not actually even getting a chance to visit other people and even scream for help if they need it. These are, you know, for most people, yeah, okay, it's fine. You know, I mean, people with resources can deal with this, but if you don't have resources, if you're a vulnerable child or a vulnerable adult, I mean, do you realize they couldn't even print the welfare checks and get them out correctly? And how are they going to take care of these poor, vulnerable kids?
Unbelievable. Let me ask you maybe the $1 million question, right? It's probably the question right now. There is, what is the meaning of life? And then the second biggest question on anybody's mind, at least those that are thinking, that are looking at the data, saying many things like you're saying. This started earlier. We also, no matter where it started, when you look at, you know, the curve, it was already on its way down before we even started these lockdowns, which means something, maybe herd immunity, was already happening before we started the lockdowns. But I heard you earlier just saying, why this, why this, why this, why this? As you sit there contemplating, I mean, you're looking at the data, which seems so obvious. It has seemed so obvious to us back when the CDC said the death rate was roughly 0.26%, 0.4% among symptomatic, or if you add in the asymptomatic a couple of weeks ago. I said, that's it. This should be over. This should be done. We need to hear Tony Fauci and Deborah Birx say, sorry, everybody, false alarm. We were really worried that this was going to be killing 2.2 million people. It's clearly not. Thank you for participating. We have real faith in the American people now. Let's all go back to work, and, you know, we'll hope that this doesn't happen again. But if it does, we know that you are there and you're responsible citizens. That didn't happen. They are continuing as though the imperial model still exists. I mean, they missed the numbers so catastrophically. Everything. I've been asking people, can you tell me anything Tony Fauci has said that stayed true for longer than 2 weeks? I don't know what these people have said that has stood up. But as you watch it, you're an intelligent person. It cannot be that Tony Fauci doesn't know what's going on. It cannot be that Deborah Birx, these people cannot be that ignorant, shall we say? Why?
Yep.
What is behind this? Why are they pushing this? What's going on?
All right. Well, one thing that's part of what's behind it is that these people, as you say, are smart enough to know they made a mistake. And I think it's like now they can't get out of it. It's like once you get your hand stuck in the tar pit, you know, you can't just come clean. I mean, you just keep trying to get deeper and deeper in the tar pit. And so now they're going to just keep alarming us further and further. They'll double down on this horrible strategy. They'll say second wave, third wave, fifth wave, Corona 19, Corona 20, Corona 21. Oh, and Corona 22 is going to, in addition to kill you today, it's going to kill you in 50 years. And it's going to cause Kawasaki's disease. Oh, and by the way, so does that mean anytime any idiot who has a title of public health MD speculates that something may be caused by C19 or C20, that we again have to lock down the whole world and we can never come out? I mean, that's ridiculous. And so what I would say is, any of you who are attorneys or no attorneys and you don't like this lockdown, let's get standing in your local court from a business, a pizza restaurant, a bar that's out of business because their life is down the toilet because they dreamed of a job and a business and they don't have it and their employees don't have it. Because why are we not going to bars? We went to bars and, well, I didn't because I was too young, but we went to bars in 1968 in the Hong Kong flu epidemic. No one was wearing masks. No one was having, and we went to parks. We enjoyed life. Sometimes the cops were shooting tear gas back then too, but we enjoyed life back in 1968, despite a death rate from a flu that is 3 times worse than C19. So if you're a lawyer, you know one, try and open up the local restaurants and bars, and if they say, no, 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 can't do it, public emergency, say, okay, let's do a subpoena on your local hospital. Let's get some C19 blood samples. Let's send it over to USC. Let's have them test it. And guess what? It was C19 positive in September 2019. So if you got somebody who can help me do this, let's do it.
All right. You know what? I may just have somebody. We'll be talking to you more about that. That is part of what we do. We are just an educational program, I should say right now, sponsored by the Informed Consent Action Network. That is our nonprofit. We do have a legal team, and I'll tell you, Joel, I think you will be hearing from us because I think we are teetering on the verge of destroying freedom as we know it. I mean, I hope I'm not overstating it, but I think the dream of our founding fathers is literally in the hands of some very untalented so-called scientists or doctors right now. How do we get it out of their hands? What has to happen? I mean, so we sue, we move forward. Are you worried about the future of this country and the world right now? Because on one hand, we got to believe our doctors. We should be able to believe scientists. But we're on the verge of a civil war here. You have people that just don't buy it and those that are buying it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, I think this is a momentous time in world history and U.S. history, and many changes will be happening. You know, I can't predict all of them. All I can say is the longer we stay in lockdown and the longer we have Americans and people around the world who believe all this utter nonsense about C19 being a deathly virus, and all our healthcare workers being too scared to even treat their own patients, like some of my family members, despite the heroic talents of many healthcare workers, such as the guest that you had on right before me. Mm-hmm. And I salute all the courageous healthcare workers. My grandfather lost his life in World War II as an Army medical doctor treating GIs in North Africa in World War II. So I sympathize with the courageous healthcare workers of the United States.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. Everybody, I really do. We need to help Joel out. So please go to his website, joelhay.com, and sign up for the survey. Just go through the survey. It doesn't matter whether you think your information is important or not. That's the entire point of a survey, to get as many diverse people and positions and ideas, socioeconomic factors. All of that is how science is done, data collection is done. Since we know the data is being hid from us and nobody can get to it, why don't we hand our data to somebody that actually wants to do something important? Joel Hay, it is, again, along with all the guests, you are a hero today. We are celebrating your courage. I doubt USC wants you out there talking about this stuff. But I appreciate that you are, and hopefully we will be in touch, and maybe we'll get you on to talk about some other data and economic features around medicine in the future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Joe. I guess I'm testing the limits of academic freedom for a tenured professor, but yeah, appreciate your support, and kudos right back at you. You're doing a heroic job, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
If you like that clip, then be sure to check out our live broadcast of The High Wire every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. You can watch it on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, and Twitter. We'll see you there.